Roberson. I'm the Director of Career Services here at Texas Southern University, and I know you're going to be formulating your questions as you listen to these wonderful panelists engage you in opportunities. I'd like to bring up our moderator for this afternoon's event. We have Mr. Kevrick McCain from Connect the Dots. Let's give him a round of applause. Mr. McCain.
Very excited to have her here in terms of in talking about aviation management. Professor Hall has been here for 9 years, and we're very excited to actually have her as a part. And then also your program coordinator, Vernon Baker. Mr. Baker heads up the aviation management area in terms of coordinating that particular program. He's also one of your teachers here. And frankly, when I've come around on some of the campuses, been probably one of the strongest advocates for you post-graduation. That has always come up in every conversation that we've had, whether it be on the phone or in person, about what are you going to do when you graduate, and trying to help you in terms of finding employment when you do graduate. So we're very pleased to have him here as a part. So I do want to keep us on a good schedule so that we are not here too long, and the food doesn't get too cold, and you guys can get back to, I'll say, your studies. What's today? Tuesday? Yeah, definitely your studies. Today's not Thursday, so we can't say that, well, I'll just forget about Friday and basically not do that. But we know that you're going to study a little bit here on Tuesday. So I do want to get right in terms of right into our panel discussion. So I wanted to start with Commander Coley and just kind of get an idea from Commander, just telling us a little bit about in terms of your journey into the Coast Guard.
The son of a sharecropper in North Carolina. My mother, she is a retired court stenographer, and she was actually one of the first African-American court stenographers in the state of North Carolina, actually the first. Thank you. So she was the first, and she is the daughter of a coal miner up in Pennsylvania. So I came from a very strong working class neighborhood. I watched my neighborhood change as I grew up. It changed significantly. A lot of the people who were my age and younger had returned, my age now and younger, much younger, had returned from Vietnam, and so I watched a generation of people who were impacted by drugs, heroin, crack cocaine started to come about. That impacted the neighborhood that I grew up quite a bit. So I watched that. I watched it impact the children in my neighborhood. There's an awful lot of poverty, an awful lot of people trying to do the best that they could. So I watched a lot of that growing up. My father both my parents were actively involved in the community and trying to make a difference. And so I think that is what impacted me as much as anything in some of the decisions that I made. So had the opportunity at one point to join a program that was offered. It was at that point called the Minority Officer Recruitment Effort. It was brought to me, the opportunity was brought to me as a possibility while I was still in high school. And I was fortunate enough to have performed well enough in school to have some other options, but I looked at it, I looked at the benefits from being in the program, which were superior to those that were available in some of the other programs that would allow me to go to school without having to burden my parents. And I took advantage of it. So in the second year of college, I joined the Minority Officer Recruitment Effort, the MORE program, which is now the C-SPY program, which Mr. McCain probably will speak to some. And out of that, I joined I was fortunate enough to perform well enough in Officer Candidate School, which is 4 months training to prepare you to become an officer in the military. I performed well enough there to go straight to flight school, and was fortunate enough to get my choice out of flight school. I went to Miami, which was quite the experience. I was not much older than you all, and Uncle Sam felt strong enough, allowed me to fly at first with the, as a co-pilot in a crew, and then eventually as the mission commander, aircraft commander of a crew. And I got to fly all over the Caribbean and South America, Central America, chasing drug smugglers and people transporting contraband all throughout those areas. So I did that mission for about 5 years. I went from there to our aviation training center. All the Coast Guard trains in one centralized location after you do your initial flight training with the Navy, and that's in Mobile, Alabama. So I reported to Mobile, Alabama. My first assignment there was as what was called then the current ops, which is kind of like the assistant to the operations officer or the chief pilot. I did that for a year, and then I was fortunate enough to be selected to be the command safety officer for the unit. And what the command safety officer does is they're in charge of all of the aviation safety and ground safety for a unit. It was a new position that was created due to the complexity of operations at the Aviation Training Center. So I was fortunate enough to be in the position to take that. Afforded me the opportunity to go to several schools and do some interesting training, from OSHA all the way up to flight safety and becoming an accident investigator. And while I was there, I was fortunate enough to be able to aid and assist with Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Rita, Hurricane Ike, Hurricane Ivan. There was a period there of about 4 years where it seemed like monthly we were getting some pretty major storms, and so I was able to assist with those efforts. From there, I was fortunate enough to be selected to join what was a new acquisition of aircraft for the Coast Guard. It was the first time we had really purchased an aircraft in about 20 years, but it was the largest acquisition program the Coast Guard had ever engaged in. It was about a $1.2 billion program. So I was one of the first 4 pilots, one of the first 5 pilots to be trained and become an instructor pilot in that program. And a few years later, I was selected to go lead the program from Washington. So I did that for 4 years in Washington, and after that assignment, I was selected to become the chief pilot down at Sector Corpus Christi. So that's been my path, relatively, in a nutshell. I am now going to move into a different position, which is the executive officer, logistics officer, and commanding officer for enlisted personnel down in Sector Corpus Christi. And so my responsibilities would change a bit, but I'll still be able to fly, which is one of my loves. I got into aviation. Well, my interest in aviation came from several different points. One was, as you mentioned, Tuskegee Airmen. I had some engagement at a very young age with some of the founding members, and there was a flight program that they offered down at Tuskegee. My father also, one of his first jobs as a police officer was as an airport police officer. The third was probably the fact that when I looked on TV, the only places that I saw people who looked like me were in science fiction movies, and so Star Wars. It was Billy D. Williams, and on Star Trek it was Lieutenant Uhura. And those are really the only people on TV who looked like me that were in positions of authority. And so I thought, between that engagement with my father and the Tuskegee Airmen, that was a career field that interested me. And I told a story earlier that I had a first grade teacher who when during a career day and we were all saying what we wanted to do, and I said I wanted to be a pilot, she told me that I probably should, that people like me didn't do that. I probably should look at maybe going to the post office or doing a job similar to that, and so here I am 20 years later. That's my story.
All right. I actually had quite there's a follow-up in there, but I'm going to let Colonel Yorst let you tell us a little bit, and I really would like you to kind of talk a little bit about yourself, and frankly, just briefly talk a little bit about the Air Force's role when it comes to flying.
Here's what you need to know about. There's a lot of acronyms and ranks and jobs. We've had them all. We're all pretty smart. We're pretty lucky. But you're not going to understand that. What I want you to understand is that we're very lucky and that we're connected. We're the same. And I want you to understand that where I am 30 years later, you can be there, or you can be somewhere else, or you can be nowhere. This is your choice. This is an opportunity for you guys to do something. And one of my big problems in the Pentagon is, and in the Coast Guard, and in all these opportunities, these places we give opportunities, is this. One thing, we can't find anybody to take our spots when we leave. There's nobody there. In 2012, there were no women available to become colonels in the Air Force. There were none. They were not because they're not smart, but because they didn't know what steps to take to be ready and eligible to take those next ranks. That's not your fault. That's our fault. We didn't teach you. We didn't tell you. You can't just know stuff. So the question was, where did I come from aviation? Well, honestly, how I got into aviation back in 1982, 81, a million years ago, was quite by accident. A friend of mine was saying, well, we're going to go into school, and we're going to, just come on, man, take this test with me. It's some kind of test. I didn't know what it was. Well, maybe we can be pilots in the Army. Army, what is the Army at? They have helicopters. I had no idea. I took the test, he took the test. I won a 4-year academic scholarship at Canisius College in Buffalo, New York to fly helicopters, and I did that for 10 years. No idea. I didn't even know what I did. I didn't even know that. I didn't know the Army had helicopters. It was quite by luck. That goes to who you hang out with. So who you hang out with, if they're not as eager and as hungry as you are, you're not going to learn anything from them. We were talking about that just a little while ago. This is the dinner table. We are first generation college grads, many of us here on this panel, in this school. We knew a couple things. We knew what poverty was. We knew our parents couldn't vote. I'm old enough to remember, I'm old enough to have been alive when the Voting Rights Act was not passed. And now it's under fire again. I know what that's like. And if you guys don't know what it's like, you're getting ready to. Because when more folks celebrate the Dallas Mavericks win in championships in Dallas than came out to vote for the mayoral election, we got a real problem, guys. And that's not a mistake. So as a school teacher, as a former Army aviator, as an Air Force officer, as a Pentagon staffer, and now as a staffer for the National Guard doing diversity issues, that's all you need to know. What you really need to know is we're connected. You can't know what you don't know. It's our opportunity and our responsibility to tell you, guys, this guy's got money. You understand that? We don't have any. You understand that? He's got money, you don't, you need it, and he's got opportunities that are just not being advertised to you. What you get advertised is the new sneakers, you get advertised that stupid show last night, you get advertised the Super Bowl, all the things that mean nothing to your life. They're not going to add one thing to you. They're more distractions, and it's not a mistake. Don't think it is. I love Kanye, love Beyonce, and then listen, here's a new thing. We got some of these stars doing stuff that's socially, man, listen, this isn't new. Back when we were growing up, it was Gil Scott Heron and Public Enemy and all those folks. They did some, and they didn't last long because they were doing that real live stuff. We got folks now that you guys recognize that are doing real life and people getting upset about it. I saw that thing with what was the new rapper out of LA? What's his name? Oh, man, I don't watch TV. I don't like a lot of stuff. I was riveted. And I was happy that my daughters were sitting there watching this. This is real stuff. And a lot of folks don't want to hear it. So you're going to see him get cut off soon. You watch. But you guys better stay awake. Because there's a couple points I want to make. I'm not going to be long, but a couple points I want to make. There are opportunities out there you don't know about. It is our opportunity, our responsibility to teach you what those are. And the last point I'm going to make, because I'm going threes, time's running out. I'm retired. There's nobody behind me. The commander may retire. Who you got coming up behind you that you know?
Not very many.
There's more opportunities now than there are people to take them. That's the point. We can't be fooling around. Because if you want to, then listen, fine. When I taught at South Dakota High School in Dallas, I told kids the same thing. Some of them listened to me, some of them didn't. But life is going to go on with or without you. Opportunity is going to go on with or without you. It's there for you. And listen, we're getting ready to go through an election right now. You see what's going on. You think these folks aren't serious? When you can convince poor people who don't look like us, and you're super rich, that you're for them, that's crazy. This is crazy. Let's see how many of us vote. We got municipal elections in Dallas coming up in May. You watch. 5,000 people. We got 50,000 people in my district going to watch. 5,000 people vote. 2,000, maybe 7,000 people will vote for the school board, will vote for the state senator, will vote for your congressional districts. Do you even know who your congressman or congressman is now where you live? If you don't know that, you need to fight, because those are the people who matter, and we don't know them.
To my students all the time about the different opportunities in aviation. Aviation is so broad. There's so many opportunities to aviation. I believe probably the aviation management, airport management field, that industry, going into safety and security. Those are going to be your top 3 areas. Now, the job positions varies. There's, so many job positions within those 3 areas of the aviation industry. So you're looking at aviation management, aviation safety, aviation security. And there's many positions and many opportunities in those 3 areas. Why do I give those 3? Just the way that the industry is headed now. The next gen, new technology. After 9/11, security has changed tremendously in the aviation industry. We don't even look at aviation the same way prior to 9/11. Now we're in the after 9/11 era, and aviation security has changed. The general aviation industry, right, is wide open now in terms of safety and security and management. So I would say that those would be the 3 top areas of opportunities. And I believe just in every discipline, and I'll say this, you don't actually have to be an aviation major. You can minor in aviation, but there are a lot of other disciplines that match the industry, such as criminal justice, physics, biology, just different areas of technology. They match with the aviation industry. So it's just wide open. The opportunities are wide open.
Well, look, speaking of that, in terms of Texas Southern, and this goes to Mr. Baker, Vernon, what would you say that Texas Southern could do right now in terms of to leverage your flight program, to leverage the fact that you guys have a flight simulator? What are some of the things that you see Texas Southern doing in the future?
In my opinion, the biggest thing that can be done is advertising.
because and I didn't know that the colonel was from Dallas, but just a couple of weeks ago, I got a phone call out of the blue from a lady with the City of Dallas Aviation Club, and she went to Texas Southern, left here in 1983, and she works for the aviation department in Dallas, and she called me and said, I didn't know Texas Southern had an aviation management program. I said, yeah, it's been here since 1987. And she said, are you serious? I said, yes. So the program has been here that long. I was actually the third graduate of the management program here at Texas Southern University in 1991. So it's been here for a long, long time. And with that conversation, she said, well, you know, I've noticed since I've been working in aviation that there aren't a lot of people who look like you and I. See, I've known that for about 32 years because I've worked in the industry that long as well. And the other thing she says, well, we're toying with maybe offering intern positions. I said, I got 2 students ready to go. When do you want to offer? So she said, well, let me talk to my director and I'll get back to you. So just last week she called me back and said, it's a go. So I've got 2 summer intern positions at the City of Dallas Aviation Department. We're working at Love Field as well as Dallas, what used to be called Redbird Airport, it's now Dallas Executive. So I'm about creating opportunities for our students, not just the aviation science students, but students in particular. When I hear about things that are happening, I spread the word. When I hear about jobs, I spread the word. I jump on intern positions. I've got 3 general aviation airports in the area that provide intern positions for our students. It's not paid, but the experience is valuable. My daughter was in school. I would tell her to take every opportunity that there was to do interns because that's something you can put on a resume. I worked here, I did X, Y, Z kind of thing. So opportunity, opportunity, opportunity is a word. Take advantage of it. And just to give you an idea of my career, both my parents were Air Force officers. So back in the late 40s, early 50s, that was kind of unheard of for African Americans. My mother actually had to give up her Air Force commission because women could not have kids in the military back in the 50s. So she gave up her career to have me. And so I said I had to do something positive with my life. So I try to do that on a daily basis in everything that I do, from working to teaching. And I've been here at Texas Southern since 2009, teaching in the program here. I love it, and I love seeing a student graduate and become successful and get a job in the field they study. It's not impossible. It's all about taking the right opportunities, and Texas Southern needs to start advertising what we have, put it out there on the street to let folks know what's going on here. Because you hear about all the bad stuff all the time, but you never hear about the good things that are actually going on this university campus, and there's a lot of good things happening.
Well, just speaking of that, Commander, let me just ask in terms of, you know, one of the things that I've looked at when you talk about the Coast Guard as a branch, and I really want to center in on something that you do. Can you expound a little bit about what you did during Hurricane Katrina? And
First of all, and I don't say this too often because people who I work with will figure it out, and they'll now with YouTube and everything else, they'll find the video of it, and it'll come back to haunt me during whenever my retirement is. But Hurricane Katrina, I was in New Orleans the day before and the day of. Well, the day before Hurricane Katrina hit, I was on. I'd gotten selected to be on Wheel of Fortune, so I was there with my family. We were doing the filming Wheel of Fortune. They said, "Hey, we got to hurry up. We're gonna rush this filming," because they filmed the whole week inside of one filming. So hey, we're gonna have to hurry this up. We're gonna have to film. We have to shut things down because the hurricane's coming. And I was aware because I was on recall status for possibly flying a plane away for the Coast Guard. So they closed up shop. I got the call that I was going to need to take a plane over to Jacksonville, Florida. My family, they stayed in a house. I had just moved into a brand new house that I built, and my parents and family and were all staying in the house. I tried to get them to convince them to leave, but my parents were relatively, I won't call them stubborn because I'm still scared of my father and mother a little bit. So I'll just say that they're determined in their position sometimes, and so they were determined that they weren't going to leave. They figured that the house was going to be fine. So they stayed in Mobile. I took the plane over to Jacksonville, Florida. So long story short, we tried to make it back into. Well, we started getting some calls because some of our helicopters, our bigger helicopters, were taken off from where we were located, and they were hopping over, refueling in different places, trying to make it over to where we thought the devastation would be. And they made it as far as Mississippi, and we started getting calls about how bad it was. So we took I was flying the Falcon jets at that point. We took 2 of them out of Jacksonville, myself and my crew, and there was another crew, and we started trying to make our way up to the back of Hurricane Katrina. We made it about as far as just to the east of Pensacola, Florida. If you all aren't aware of where Pensacola is, there's a panhandle of Florida that's at the top. It's more like southern Alabama than it is Florida. And we made it about that far and ended up having to turn around and go the other direction. We ended up landing back at Panama City Airport. It's old Panama City Airport. It's a pretty small runway. Barely made it in. It was right at the limits of the aircraft, and so we landed safely. So we made it. We slept there for a few hours. We got up the next day, and the flight of 2, my plane and the other plane, we got airborne. We went out, and when we were fighting the weather, still the back end of the storm pretty severely, but we got through it, and we started to see what all of you all who may remember, some of you may be too young to remember at this point, but we started seeing firsthand what I think the rest of the country probably would see in the coming days, and that was the absolute devastation of southern Mississippi, Alabama, and parts of Florida. So the first day, that was it, and it was pretty phenomenal. Very, very sad to see the devastation of the area. There was, I remember seeing a train that had been carried probably 20 miles from its track, fishing boats that were 30, 40 miles inland. I remember seeing a herd of cattle that had been swept to sea, and you see just these little heads of cattle floating out. We eventually made it to New Orleans. The wind damage at that point wasn't that bad, but over the next couple of days we would see firsthand everything that was on the news. So that was my experience. The next 70 days we saw quite a bit and experienced quite a bit with that particular storm. It was very sad. A lot of unique flying through cities at low altitudes, watching people come through roofs. People, after they would hear the jet come past, then that would be the clue. I think they would hear that, and some people would stop popping through roofs or congregating on the high points of roads. And you would go past the first time, the road would have some water collected. The next time there would be more, and then it would be up to the top of the overpass. And so that was Hurricane Katrina in about 5 minutes.
Colonel, with that, just to ask, why do you think, what Commander Coley said, the thing I guess I wanted to stress in this is, each particular branch has their own particular mission. And I've always seen the Coast Guard's mission as being far more humanitarian, but there also is a border security portion of that in terms of the law enforcement. But Colonel, I just want to ask, because you come, when you were in the Air Force's diversity office, if you could put your finger on what were some of the reasons why we just see such low numbers of minorities involved in aviation? You could really put your finger on it. What would you say?
Well, as we spoke of earlier, it's just a matter of information. You don't know that it's there. You can't just know, and it's unfair for us to expect for you to know. So, the connection between what happened in Hurricane Katrina and the unique flying and all the things that were seen and done by folks, you would never know if the commander wouldn't be here talking to you about that right now. So, I think the nexus between us and you is that you could do that if you're there, but you can't be there if you don't know that there's a way to get there. And the point I wanted to make earlier with this also is there are opportunities to do really, I just say, cool stuff. But if this is not even in your set of dreams, it's basketball too often, and football or sports and musicians and all that, and that's great stuff. But this can be in your dream set also. To answer your question directly, as I think I can, the Air Force is more strategic world body stuff. I work in the National Guard Bureau now, and a lot of stuff that happened in Katrina was involving the National Guard from Texas, the National Guard from, I think Oklahoma was there. I know, of course, New Orleans was there, Louisiana and Mississippi. So those were, once again, opportunities that you don't know about. You can be in the military and be at home in something called the Air or Army National Guard. So those are more humanitarian. Those are what is most rightly termed the militia of the United States, the Air and Army National Guard, and those folks do a lot of that good work that the commander was doing, but those are opportunities that are available to you that aren't obvious. So why you're not there, why you're not here, why you're not in an aircraft, in a helicopter, as I said earlier, I didn't even know the Army had helicopters. I had no idea. It's not obvious. So what we're trying to make a little more obvious to you guys is that there's such a thing called the Coast Guard, which has done, I guess, kind of decent job of advertising what they do. You have the National Guard, Army and Air, both fly, which has done a kind of decent job of advertising what they do, but not really. The Air Force, who has done a marginal job of advertising what it is they do and the opportunities to you, but not really. We have the Army, who has more airframes than any branch. And you didn't know that because the Army really has done a kind of marginal job of telling you that, but not really. You don't know. So if with all of this, it's just like what was said by the professors here. I want to know who you talk to in Dallas, because I'm really integral in I'm trying to get more integral in the politics in Dallas, because I just moved back there, and that's important to me. So, and I'm real familiar with left field because I fly to DC all the time. In my current job as a National Guard Bureau Strategic Communications Director, and my job is to let folks know these are the opportunities out there. Because when you tell me that there are no people out there who look like you young people, available and ready to take command, to take commission, to take rank, it's not because you're not smart. It's not because you're not equipped and your aptitude isn't there. It's because you don't know what is required to be in the queue to take those jobs. That's the only reason. So when I tell you the opportunities are there, but the people are not, that's you folks. I just got to show you. I mean, what does it take to be a commander? We talked about it earlier. Why don't you talk to the kids about what we talked about earlier about folks ready to take command, and how do you, it's not obvious. It's not written in the book. These are things you need to do to be ready for it. It's just not.
Well, and also, Commander, along with what it takes to lead, I would like you to specify in terms of, because it's a two-part. One would be what the C-SPOT program has actually done to help in that process. And then I wanted to go on the economic side with the professors. Go ahead, Commander.
Well, those are great points. And it's a two-part question, but it's a one-part answer. The problem that I have seen, and is still a challenge in, I think, all of the services, or really throughout the economy, is that our penetration as first-generation folks, second-generation folks, we haven't been sufficient in numbers to have those networks or that system where you can reach back and ask the question, what should I do? Or you can network into someone just mentioning your name. As you move through, whether you're in the military or whether you're in corporate America, a lot of where you end up is, number one, having a basis of knowledge and understanding and a professional reputation. But number two is someone being able to mention your name in a conversation, to pull your application or your resume out of a pile of others and put them on the top. And we haven't penetrated enough into different places inside of the military or inside of civilian organizations, commercial organizations, to do that. The MORE program, the C-SPY program, that is where the true benefit of those efforts are, is that there may only be one of me or two of me or three of me or four of me in the organization, but slowly enough we've been able to be in positions where we can help any number of people. And I don't mean just people of color, I mean people from all different types of background, because we bring a different perspective. My background is not going to be like anybody else's background in this room, but my background may be what allows me to see something inside of someone that may benefit the organization, and that's where the advantage comes from. That's where these programs become truly important to the organization and really to you, because the more of you, more people who have a background in HBCU and understand the challenges of an HBCU. I know when I went through Morehouse, I probably don't have to explain to you how hard it was getting my financial, even though my financial aid was in my account, actually getting it to where I could register for classes was a challenge. And so some of those stories, if you haven't experienced them, you don't understand. You don't understand why some things may be different. So those things. That's why these programs are important. That's why it's important for people to continue them. And I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Well, I wanted to drill down. It does, but I wanted to drill down in terms of what exactly did the MORE program do? If you had to say, exactly, what exactly did it do while you were in school?
So this is what it did for me is, and we talked about this a little earlier. I realized it was an opportunity when I was still in high school, and I wasn't old enough, and I need to go through college for 2 years before I could participate in the program. So I identified early enough that it was an opportunity. But what it allowed me to do, number one, is my junior year, I'd already been in the service for 2 years. I went into the reserves. I figured that would be a way for me to maximize. There was a Montgomery GI Bill at that point, and as a reservist, you could take money out of the system without putting in as part of your pay. So it was an opportunity for me to get some additional funding for school. That allowed me to put money and purchase really my first house, that along with the money that I got from the MORE program. It also allowed me to participate in an internship program because I wasn't worried about, I wasn't necessarily worried about where my next meal was going to be coming from after I entered into the program, because I got pay as an E5, which for me was the biggest paycheck I'd ever gotten in my life, and it meant me moving from eating ramen noodles and boiling hot dogs for dinner to actually being able to add some other color to my plate, and so that was pretty good. So it allowed me to do that, and I went to an internship program. One of my economics teachers asked me to come and work for him as an intern, doing some statistical analysis, which is something I still put on my resume today. So it allowed me to that opportunity, which opened some doors. It also allowed me to study abroad. I didn't have to work during the summer in a traditional job to save up enough money to subsist during the rest of the year, because I had the program, and the program MORE program actually paid for my study abroad. So I participated in 2 study abroad programs on the dime of the program, the MORE program, now C-SPY program. So I got to study in Europe. I got to study in Mexico, things that most people don't get to do. I also took 20 semester hours, because all my school was paid for, so I took 20 semester hours every semester, because I maxed it out. And so I got to graduate with 2 majors and 4 minors, and I studied a bunch of different languages, and so those are the things that I got to do as part of the program for free. And the biggest thing is I got to graduate, and I told this to some folks earlier, with $900 total in student loans that I owed, and I paid those back right after I graduated with one of my first checks. So that's what the program did for me.
And with that, and I'm going to start Mr. Baker to Professor Booker. We talked about opportunities. Is there a particular area on the aviation side, whether it's air traffic control or something of that nature, that you could say, hey, this is an area that we could get into, that a student could get into right now, that would provide, opportunity? It's kind of like when you look at the C-SPOT program, it's like, I mentioned this to a student, there's a certain set pay. They come in as an ensign, they're making $60,000 a year. So you, in terms of, what would you say in terms of on the air traffic control side, or whatever area that is in aviation, would you say there's some unique opportunities in?
Well, of course, air traffic is a very unique opportunity right now, and I can speak from personal experience because I was an air traffic controller, 4 years in the Air Force and 3 years with the FAA. And most of you guys probably don't remember in 1981 when Reagan fired 11,500 controllers. I was one of those people. So right now, all the folks who took my place 30 years ago are now retirement age. And the agency is shorthanded of controllers big time. We have a gentleman by the name of Calvin Brown, who is a TSU graduate, former Air Force controller. He's a controller at Houston Center, and he teaches our basic air traffic control class. His base salary as a GS-14 is $180,000 a year. And most of the places I went to as an air traffic controller, facilities I worked at, I was the only one who looked like me. That was in Air Force and FAA. So they're actually so short-handed until they're working a mandatory 6-day work weeks right now and making that kind of money. So I've got 3 students who applied last year when the FAA put an announcement out looking for controllers. They are currently in the FAA Academy up in Oklahoma City, studying to be air traffic controllers for 17 weeks. And then once they finish that, they'll go to a facility and start on-the-job training. Aviation management is another area where I think there's a lot of opportunity. I retired from the Houston Airport system as the Assistant Director of Operations at Bush Intercontinental Airport. And when I first started in aviation management as an operations and safety officer, I'd be riding around on the ramp areas doing my inspections. And most of the black guys, of course, were on the ramp throwing bags on airplanes. And they would wave me over. And I'd drive over in the car. And I said, what's going on? What's the problem? Nothing, man. We just want to see who you were because we've never seen a black guy in an ops car before. So that's the kind of opportunity that's out there. I started working at Bush in 1984. I was the first African American to work in airport operations. The airport opened in 1969. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. General aviation management, large airport management, air carrier management, and of course air traffic control.
Well, let's talk about on the entrepreneurial side, because we're Professor Alrana, because we're getting towards the end here. But what on the entrepreneurial side could you see that's available for someone who wants to make some funds in the future, looking for opportunities?
Exactly, and I have some of my students in here, so they know I speak on this all the time. Working in the industry and working for someone else is good, but I always teach them to go in and learn the skill, right, and then eventually start your own company, whether it's an aviation consultant, that's pretty big now, or just going into the general aviation industry, because that industry is rapidly growing, because just the times have changed, right? So there's opportunities for you to start your own aviation business or something closely related to the transportation industry. There are entrepreneurial opportunities available there. I just wanted to kind of pinpoint, I'm real big with women in aviation. And so when I go out recruiting, I'm always talking to the females, because there's just not enough females in the aviation industry. So Mr. Baker said he was, gave you a little black history. He was the first African-American working ops. Well, believe it or not, I was the first African-American female to work in hobby operations. So William P. Hobby Airport here, I was the first African-American to be hired there. And so the opportunities are wide open, right? They're wide open. If that answers
That's
the question.
tremendous. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Mr. Baker, and then because we're getting short on time, and I want to open it up for some questions from the students. But go ahead.
I was just going to add to what Ms. Holmes said. You don't necessarily have to have a degree in aviation management. It could be in business. It could be in economics. It could be in computer science. And if you think about it, the industry itself runs on electronics. There's over 30,000 employees at United Airlines at Bush Intercontinental Airport. Every last one of them, when they go to work in the morning, they use their fingerprint to sign in and sign out. It's electronics, a card reader system. Everybody has an airport badge. Every door, every gate, every door to open the door to get on an airplane has a card reader on it. Somebody maintains those systems. Somebody keeps them up, updates them. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. You just have to seek it. And there's a lot of money to be made as well. The salaries are very decent.
That's great. That's great. Well, I want to open it up for about 10 minutes of questions. And so if there are any...
My question is the U.S. Coast Guard with the flight only with helicopters, or you have other, kinds of other planes, or it's only Senator?
From people who have known me for most of my life, and they find out that I've flown my entire career in fixed-wing aircraft, it's like, I didn't even know the Coast Guard had fixed-wing planes. First of all, I didn't even know Coast Guard had helicopters or planes, but I definitely didn't know they had planes. So no, I fly I fly fixed-wing aircraft. That's what I've done for my entire career. I will tell you that the service is biased more towards helicopters. We have more of them, and they actually affect most of the person-to-person type rescues that you'll see in the movies. But I have flown Falcon jets, which I love. They were fast and they were fun. And I helped bring on the 144 program, which is a twin-wing, high-prop, kind of looks like a mini C-130. It's made to land on short runways and take off of even shorter runways, and that's been a blast to fly as well. So to answer your question, yes, we have both fixed-wing and rotary-wing, and we have a joint program that the unit that I am attached to, we work with Customs and Border Protection. We have an unmanned aircraft program, MQ-9 Predator drones. I have 4 pilots and 9 enlisted petty officers that work on that unmanned aerial aircraft program. It's the only joint operational program the Coast Guard like it.
And speaking of the Falcon jet, if you don't know what that is, it's on par pretty much with a kind of a G4.
Yeah.
It's one of the preferred aircraft of rich people. I mean, I did a little bit of contract flying out of Love Field years ago while I was teaching, kind of moonlighting as a teacher. I was also I had to make some money, so I would fly some of these things. I flew some. Not a Falcon jet, but a Falcon jet. The skill set that he's been paid to get is one that's going to pay him a huge dividend if he's willing to go and fly for some person who, I mean, I've taken a day out of school teaching high school to fly to I think Arizona, I think it was, just to get some rich guy's wife. She left her fur coat there, and I had to fly to get it for them. And you get a $300 or $400 tip after flying their jet instead of messing with you guys in school all day. That was pretty cool. But these are skill sets that, I mean, I don't even know how much it would cost to get a rating like that. Probably couldn't do it. Most people get them in the military, so. These are skill sets that are available to you. You just got to know about them. And you can, I mean, part of the problem that our good commander has here is he can stay in or he can get out and make a lot more. I mean, that's a good problem to have, right? Okay, so.
First of all, I wanted to ask you, what was the hardest part of your flight training? And my question to you is, what was the greatest hardship as you would describe as from when you started to where you are now? What sticks out to you, and what advice would you give to us?
I will tell you the hardest part of my flight training was and it goes back and it links back into why diversity is important. We all think differently, and if you become a flight instructor or a teacher, you'll understand that every learner is a little bit different, and you can't use a singular approach to try to impart information on every learner the same way. And the military, particularly the Coast Guard, because it's so small, they had experience with maybe one or two different types of learners. So I was a different kind of learner. I thought differently. I approached challenges differently. I look at situations differently, and so I spent a small bit of time in my career, my earlier part of my career, when I was learning how to fly, trying to be like every other learner in the group and try to think like they thought. And I think that was the hardest thing for me, is to grow past that and realize that I had to learn like I learned, and I had to chunk information like I was comfortable with chunking information. And once I did that, my performance changed. It accelerated quite a bit. So I would say that the hardest thing for me was learning that I didn't have to learn like everybody else. I didn't necessarily have to, and it may seem kind of silly to you all, but maybe when you get out into your respective careers, you'll see there will be a push to make you think and understand and learn like everybody else, but you have to be comfortable with the way you're used to learning, and you have to take into account the way the system works, but you also have to manage the system yourself inside of yourself. So that was the hardest thing for me.
I'll be brief. Here's what I want to let you guys all know. You're not dumb. Because you don't get it the first or second time, you're not dumb. I came from the inner city Buffalo. I went to flight school in Laurel, Alabama, and I'd be told by flight instructors, hey, and we'd be flying low-level stuff like this, and they say, well, just turn at that big pecan tree. I didn't know what, and like everybody knows what a big pecan tree looks like. I'm from Buffalo, man. I don't know what a pecan tree looks like, but I'm supposed to know. And my biggest challenge was feeling really out of place, because in 1986, 84, I'm lying, 84, I was the only one. If you go through now, you'll probably be one of the only ones, and you're going to feel stupid a lot. Don't feel dumb. The way we learn and get things, it may take us different skills, and that's what you're doing right now. You should be doing now. You need to figure out how you best learn. If it's repetition, if it's note cards, if it's drawing stuff out, you better learn now one thing in school, how you best learn. Because when you get into a position where people are threatening you and you're going to die if you do this thing the wrong way, like do in aviation, you get religion and you figure out how you learn. And it may not be the way that they are telling you, but you may tell them, yeah, you're right, sir, you're right, chief. But you getting it your own way. You got notes on your fingers, you got mnemonic devices you're thinking about, you got little songs that you memorized up by whatever it takes. You're figuring it out. Because you're about to fail and go home with your tail between your legs like an idiot. Being the only graduate, first ever, you can't have that happen. You got to figure it out. So that was my biggest challenge with flying, because it's different. There's nothing else like that. What prepared me in Buffalo to do that? Nothing. So that's the biggest challenge, and it will be for you guys in everything you do.
Thank you.
These people up here are telling you about experiences that go with every disciplinary area. So you don't necessarily have to be in the STEM majors. You can be in communication, you can be in education, and so on and so forth. And those are the kinds of opportunities that you want to realize, so you can broaden your scope and make yourself competitive, especially in these kinds of job markets. You get it? Does that make any sense to you? Does that make sense to you? Absolutely. All right, well, thank you guys. Thank you, Mr. Baker. Thank you, Professor Hall. Thank you, Mr. Yours, who came in from Dallas today, by the way, to be a part of this conversation. Commander Coley, we don't know what we would do without you. And Commander Coley gave TSU $4,000 today to support you, Kevin McCain. And we love our students. Go TSU Tigers. We're going to see you next time at the next event. You guys have a great day.